Welcome back to another episode of the Know Your Power podcast. I'm your host, juliarene.
And Kendall Aaliyah.
And today, y'all, we are going to talk about what we really thought of the Barbie movie. So hopefully you guys saw it, because this is going to be...
Oh, lots of spoilers.
Lots of spoilers.
Definitely watch it before this, or be committed to, like, you're never going to watch it, or if you don't care if we ruin it.
I'm a person that I don't really care if it's ruined.
Oh, if I know the ending to something, though, like, I won't watch it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're screwed if you're listening to this. But it's been out for a while. We've been late to seeing it, and we really wanted to see it. We all got our friend group together. We saw it this weekend, and it was amazing. It was so funny, too.
It was way funnier than I expected.
It was way better than I expected.
The like, one or two people I told I was going were both men, and they were both like didn't love it.
The guys
but, like,
that
also, you're a man.
Yeah, the guys that we went with are different. They were different guys. Like,
yeah, they're very self-aware men.
They're very self-aware. They're very in touch with their masculine and feminine.
They're dating women that are very powerful. So
yes, like the men that we went with are freaking awesome. So they were like, that was amazing.
Yeah,
it was so funny. And one thing that I really loved, and the thing that I said when we left the theater, I was like, I love how dumb they made the men.
Yeah. I was like, that was so nice to have like a change of pace.
Yeah, because all the things that they were doing were so dumb.
My Mojo Dojo Casa House.
My Mojo Dojo Casa House.
It'll only make you got to be on the inside joke by seeing the movie.
Yeah, you'll know. Like, I really hope that you're listening to this and you've seen the movie, because you're going to be laughing along with us. But the way that they made. The way they made that big group of men, which was Will Ferrell and all the suit guys.
I loved Will Ferrell.
Remember when they said, okay, everyone just run in different areas? I was like, that's such a bro thing to do. Just like run at things and just rah.
Yeah, I think the movie played on stereotypes a lot, but on both fronts.
Both sides, which I really, really loved, because look, we don't hate men.
Yeah, of course
we don't hate men, but obviously there's a lot of men that contribute to the problem, and there's a lot of men that don't. Yeah. And the thing is, like, my partner and the guys that we went to, I know that there are a lot of the men that don't contribute to that stereotype, which I really, really loved and appreciated. So I'm happy that in the movie they did show both sides. Like, they showed that the masculine energy, they don't always have to hold that, and that's okay. But I really love that part about it.
Before we get into it, I told Julia I would tell her about the girl sitting next to me.
Okay.
This was not one of the people we went with. We were a big group. There were like 8 or 9 of us. Yeah. So we took up almost a whole aisle, and I was on like the end cap. I think you were on the other end cap. I was on the other end. We were sandwiching everyone in. So not one of the girls that we were with. There was like these 2 girls on the other side of me, like audibly gasping and being like, no way, to like everything. Like Michael Cera comes on screen and she was like, I didn't know he was in this. And I was like, shut the F up.
Shut up, I'm watching a movie.
Like, I don't like this. It didn't actually bother me because it was like a fun movie. But if it was like a Marvel movie or like something serious or like something I was really like, I don't know, just like into, I would have been pissed. But I was like, we're all here for Barbie. Like, it's fun. We're adults enjoying a Barbie movie. It's okay. So it didn't actually bother me, but literally I thought it was going to end the entire movie. Everything was no way. Oh my gosh. And you're like, I can't believe he did that. You're sitting there like, yeah. Oh. I'm like, thank you so much for like the added audience member. I don't know.
They're like narrating it.
I just like, people like that really like, to a core bother me. Like, if you're in public, like, I get it. If you're like on the couch with your best friend watching this movie, say all the things you want. But like, she was saying it so loud. She wasn't whispering it to her friend. She was literally sitting forward going, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. As if like, it's not a quiet theater, and the beginning of the Alamo Draft House is like, shut up.
Exactly. It was like a packed theater too. I'm sure if anyone else was next to her, they would have said something. But anyway, that was my added experience. I had an extra narrator in the room with me. I just had Zach
next to me, and I kept turning to him and being like, boys are dumb.
And And he was probably like, yeah.
No, Zach was like, okay, chill. But honestly, Zach doesn't know this, but Zach's birthday is, obviously Zach knows when his birthday is. It's August 29th, and I'm going to get him
it's coming up.
Yeah. The I am Kenough.
You should.
T-shirt.
You absolutely should.
He won't wear a sweater, but he'll wear a T-shirt. And I'm whispering because he's downstairs. But yeah, his birthday party is the 26th, and you and Cooper are invited, so make sure you come. But
if we are here, we are there.
Yes. So anyways, the boys really loved it, and they wanted the Kenough
I am Kenough. We should get them all matching.
I know. It would be so cute.
I'll get one for Cooper, even though he didn't come. I know. It's okay.
Anyways, so talking about some of the like really important points that I noticed from the movie, number one was women needing to achieve things, but also that can be completely exhausting. Mm-hmm. So, and that's okay. The part that I noticed this the most was when, the first day Barbie wakes up and like everything goes as planned. Like she wakes up and the water is just like perfect temperature. Her waffles like pop out. Yeah, her fake waffles and her fake like drink. Everything goes according to plan. She gets dressed and her hair and makeup is all great and her outfit is awesome. And then the next morning, her morning is just like off. Like she wakes up, and we've all done this before. Like we've all felt this way where we wake up one morning and it feels like we're killing it. Mm-hmm. And then like the next morning we wake up and like our hair's a mess and like nothing goes according to plan.
Yeah.
And that it just reminded me of how like in Barbie land, obviously, the ladies rule the world and like they're the presidents and they're all this and they're all that. And it can be exhausting. Like just achieving.
Yeah.
And constantly feeling like you need to achieve things in order to be respected.
Yeah.
Or to be of substance to the world.
Well, look how bad she freaked out at the sense of not being 100% perfect. Like she was still 99% perfect, but I think like the first thing to change was like she woke up late and then her hair wasn't like as full as the day before, and then like her feet flattened, and she's like, suddenly my life is ruined. I'm not perfect anymore. I have no worth anymore. And it's like that really does speak to like how I think we try to perceive ourselves all the time is like, well, if we're not having a perfect day, everything must be like going downhill. Like we don't allow ourselves to have bad days.
It's so true. Yeah,
typically.
If my feet are flat, then like I have the flattest feet of all. Zach says that I have hobbit feet.
Oh no, I actually have really flat feet too. Yeah. In gymnastics, my coaches were like, "You're never gonna be able to jump that high.
You will never succeed, you flat-footed lady,
you flat-footed little girl."
Yeah, but that's so true because you're right. These little things that are just so normal are off. Like her hair being messy, and she's like, I wasn't able to. I think. What was the quote? She says, something was,
think of it.
I don't know. She said something about one of those things that was off. And she's like, my blah, blah, blah was this morning.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, like, so?
Yeah.
So what? But it's true because we'll have some tiny thing that like goes off from plan, or we're not acting like that girl, and all of a sudden the whole world is ending. And it's also just this pressure that's put on us and this pressure that we put on ourselves. And we'll talk about this later on, but that whole speech that the lady is
I was gonna say like
saying like that was the biggest thing is like all of the stereotypes or not the stereotypes, all of the what did I write?
Double standards.
The double standards. Mm-hmm. All the double standards that we just have to live by.
Can we talk about that one now? Because I just like love that part.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you want to go in order of movie.
No.
Okay. So there's a speech, I feel like we don't have to explain the whole movie. Odds are you saw it if you're watching this. Yeah. But there's a speech once like Barbie is like laying face down. She's given up. She feels like she's not perfect anymore. She doesn't know what to live for anymore. She literally
says, I'm not pretty anymore.
Yeah. Which like Margot Robbie, come on.
And remember the note in the movie? It was like something.
Don't cast Margot Robbie to make this point clear. Because she's just perfect. Like I think she was like had no makeup on and was still like flawless. Yeah. But anyway, she's like living in this like pity world of like self world.
If
not
I
real
can't
world.
be perfect, then
what's the point? Yeah. Like I have nothing to live for at that point. And one of the humans in the Barbie world gives this speech, and I feel like it perfectly encompassed everything we try to stand for and speak on, because it's everything that at least for me, I needed and wanted to hear it when I was younger. So I feel like that's why we, like, if you read our Instagram captions all the time, like I know sometimes they're short, sometimes they're like about fitness, but when we talk about like mental health and self-worth and confidence and all those things, I think she said it as perfectly as I could have ever imagined it. Yeah. She spoke to it, and like, I don't have a direct quote. Do you?
Yeah, she says, she says, you have to be thin, but you can't be too thin. You can be strong, but you can't be complaining or bossy. You can be a great mother, but you can't be too obsessed with your children. And you can be ambitious, but you have to be humble at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just like all too hard.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of, I think it was a quote from Taylor Swift's documentary when she says something similar to this. She says, like, you have to be thin, but you have to have a big ass. Yeah. You have to be blah. And she says it's just.
But you can't ask to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy. But not actually healthy. You need to be underweight. Yeah, like, exactly. It's just like constantly we're contradicting ourselves, and it's only because like society tells us. If we were just like little girls that grew up to be who we are now without any influence from like social media or actual media like magazines or like the outside world or other people's opinions, that's the belief system we would have, was like, I just want to look this way, or I just want to be healthy. But when we have everyone else's voices, we have to have so many different thoughts on it ourselves, which is just like, And
it's also like the whole women should be seen but not heard thing that plays into this too, because like the one that I think about the most that I feel is the bossy part is because I am a very strong personality, and when I'm around certain people, I can tell that they just like don't vibe with that, and they are most likely thinking like you should just be quiet. And I'm like, for a long time I would stifle that aspect of myself because I was too much. And I have a friend that has a similar not a problem, but she struggled similarly with me, Liv, where for such a long time she would have to like make herself smaller.
She's spoken on that
in order to be accepted by other people, because when you hear like a strong, confident woman, especially someone who's in a bodybuilding space, which is completely different than what normal women would typically do, usually it's like, shut up, you know, be quiet, like go do something normal, like don't go outside the norm. And we'll talk about this too, but one of the things that I noticed was big in here was the whole Barbie in a box thing, and realizing how much they wanted to put her in a box.
A metaphorical and physical box.
Yes, because it was like, okay, she has the ability to be a badass, incredible, life-changing being in this world. So like, let's hide her and put her in a box. And just imagine all of the women in history that have been put in a box or have tried to put in a box because they were capable of making significant change.
Yeah. That's such like a good point.
Yeah.
Or even like women with any sort of platform or voice are still like trying to be belittled by others, and not always just by men, but by like society and people. Like I feel like women, we typically, and like this movie touched on a lot of these points, but still made it funny and lighthearted. Like it wasn't that deep. We're going deep. Like we're making it deep because this is what we took away from it. What was I even gonna say? I lost my train of thought.
Being put in a box.
Hold on.
Don't put baby in a corner.
Well, yeah, basically what I was saying is it's not always just like men putting it on women. It's like typically society on women. I feel like we have to work harder to prove like the same voice. Like we could say something on our podcast and a man could say it on theirs, and their audience will instantly take it as like, oh, what he's saying is 100% like authentic, truthful. I believe him. Versus if we say the same thing, we might have to say it 5 different ways for it to make the same impact.
Yeah, you're right. Like even to the sense of like in the movie where we don't realize like how much that the patriarchy is so much worse. Like it's so much more worse than we think. And it's shown in the movie because when she goes
the contrast
the contrast of when she goes to Barbie Land and she thinks that she's doing this incredible work and, you know, she's helping the people on Earth, and it's mainly because they've been put in a box of the Barbie Land so that they don't see anything that's actually going on in the outside world.
Yeah.
And the difference between her being in Barbie Land where she's in charge, the Kens follow her around, and they worship at her feet.
The men in Barbie Land literally live just for like
they live like
the female's attention,
and they live like women do in our world.
And she got here and she saw like construction workers are men and they catcall you
and they're groping her.
Exactly.
And they're that her
sexualizing
voice, her voice isn't as meaningful as her body.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that stuff is happening and she's like so confused. She's like, what? Because it's kind of like the opposite in Barbie Land, to where the men are chasing the women in Barbie Land and all the women are in charge. But in the real world, all the men are in charge and the women are chasing the men for the attention and the worthiness and the enoughness and the validation.
That's why I think if anyone sees this movie and is like, this is too, like trying too hard to be woman empowering, like men would never be accessories to women or like anything like that. Like my brain is like, you literally are so blind to what we deal with every day.
What do you mean?
Like you're so right. That's how the real world is in reverse. Like we are typically seen as living for the male gaze.
Yes.
And like doing things for men.
Yeah.
And it's like in this movie, it was reversed. And that's why it was like a shock, because it was like, oh, that seems unrealistic. Yeah. That would never happen. A person would never just like follow this other person around wanting their approval. And it's like, but that is what happens in the real world, just reverse.
That is what happens. Yeah. It can happen with both sexes and it doesn't matter. But primarily it'll be with women, because another point that I wanted to make at least is the extreme difference between like the masculine and the feminine energy in here, with Ken being in his Kendom and then Barbie, you know, in her Barbie land. But I'm starting to lose my point as I'm saying it. What were you just saying about I
was talking about like
roles?
Role reversal. It's okay. I think talking about masculine and feminine energy in general, it like encompasses a lot of the movie.
Oh yeah,
It'll come to you.
Like in the masculine sense of hyper masculine energy, where they get the Barbies to like bow down to them and like bring them a brewski and all of that stuff. And then there's the hyper feminine energy where the women are all in charge and the Kens are just literally there to serve the Barbies and to please the Barbies. Yeah. So the thing to learn here is that there needs to be like a balance between the two.
Yeah. Both of those were clearly like, this is wrong.
Yeah, that's clearly this is wrong. And I love that they actually put that in there, because I didn't think that they were going to. I thought it was going to be like strictly keeping the Barbies in charge of everything and blah, blah, blah. And I do think that we need to be in charge of a lot more things, because we have a lot of power in the feminine and being empathetic and being more patient and all these things that we are really good at. But there is power in the masculine, because it gets us to do things. We tap into that all the time.
Yeah.
When we're bodybuilding, when we're trying to get our work done. Yeah. But our feminine energy is also something that is a huge strength, and that's what connects us to other people. That's why we're connected to you guys through this podcast right now. So I feel like the lesson here is like, how can we balance both? Yeah. And they ended up doing that at the end of the movie.
I feel like they all, like men and women in Barbie Land, they all started very feminine energy. Like everyone kind of very like easygoing, doesn't want to like interfere with anyone else, just like happy-go-lucky, like butterflies and rainbows, like almost like aggressively feminine. And by the end, I think they all gained masculinity. Like not just the men like doing their whole like horses and guns thing, but the women too. Like I think when they had that like reality check and like took over their power again, that you could tell they were a lot more like tapping into that masculine energy a lot more than in the beginning, when they were just kind of like la-da-dee. Like
exactly,
it was an energy shift for everyone. And I think that's important in real life too. We've both talked about how like I think I'm inherently a little more overly feminine, and I'm learning to get a backbone and learning to be more masculine. And then I know you were like, consider yourself the opposite, and you're like gaining more like of that feminine energy and like almost allowing ourselves to do so, because it can be intimidating to be like, oh, I don't know, like standing up for myself and like having masculine energy was so scary to me. And now I have it, and I'm like, oh, why was I such like a little pushover before? Yeah.
And it's scary to learn how to navigate both, and like which scenarios you need to tap into either or. And you're right, you see that so much during the movie of them like switching back and forth between these two energies, especially when obviously Ken, goes like super toxic masculinity with the
and we
with the
all know someone like that in real life.
Where you go so far, you swing so far to the right, and it's like a pendulum swing. If you're going to swing so far into your masculine, eventually you'll swing super far into your feminine, and then eventually you'll even out, which is what we see Ken do. He goes so far to his masculine, then he goes to a part where he's so feminine to where he doesn't know what he's going to do without Barbie. And I wrote this down because it was super important because it goes for both genders. What was it? Oh, I put like not letting a man or a woman define you because Ken says, the quote in the movie, it says, Ken only has a great day if Barbie looks at him. And that's so sad. It's so sad because so many women who feel this way too. And we've felt this way at certain points in our lives that like we're only happy if a guy likes us. But the thing is that this is a message that has been sent to us since we were kids. Every single Disney movie, every single basically just Disney. Basically just Disney.
The princess is locked in the tower and the man has to save her, and without that she has no life.
She has no life.
That's the narrative we've been served forever.
Exactly. And so we're built on this as kids, so young and so just moldable, and it's scary because this is like we end up growing up and thinking that we have to get the attention of men, that they have to validate us, they have to want us, they have to think we're pretty, that we're dressing for them, this, that, and the other, when that's just not how it has to be. Because if you put everything that you are and all your worthiness and your enoughness riding on somebody else, whether it's male or female, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because we see in the movie Ken doing that to Barbie, and then he's left feeling like, well, what am I without you? No relationship should be made in this way because
and
eventually,
we've all had that at one point or another.
We've all had that relationship.
We learn from it.
where we put so much of everything that we are into them that we don't know who we are without them. And that's what Ken's doing, because Barbie just keeps saying, like, I've been telling you this whole time that I'm not into you.
Yeah. She's like, I don't love you like that.
I feel like I wrote it down.
Maybe you did.
She says... I can't remember. I can't remember what Barbie says. But yeah, she says something along the lines of just like, you need to find out who you are without me. And obviously this is a movie and he does it within 5 seconds. And it's not like that in real life. But it's just crazy because he's so sad and he feels like he doesn't know what to do with himself without her, because he doesn't know himself without Barbie, because he was created to oogle and ogle over Barbie, which sometimes it feels like women were created to do that with men, and that's not the case. But society keeps pushing that narrative and making it worse and worse and worse. But the cool thing is, I feel like, especially with movies like this, that it's being recognized and it's changing.
That's what I was saying. I called my mom immediately after watching this, just because like I needed someone to like girl talk to about it. And I was like, I think her generation is doing a really good job at like raising us to be a little more independent and not like dependable on a man. Like my mom, this was the first thing she said when I told her about the movie. She was like, well, I've been preaching to you since you were a little girl. I don't want you ever depending on a man for like income. Like I've always taught you to like get your own bag, make your own money. Because if you depend on someone else, and like, I know it's normal. There's stay-at-home moms out there. There's like, there's people in between jobs out there. I'm not saying you're like in a bad situation or you shouldn't want to depend on anyone. It's just, this was like what my mom instilled with me. Because she knew, and my parents are divorced now.
They knew what it felt like to depend on a man,
My
right?
mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was 13. And my oldest brother is like 11 years older than me. So that was like, I can't do the math. A lot of years.
It was years.
Like 20 plus years where she was a stay-at-home mom, and she felt very stuck because she didn't have anything. She was getting on her own and working for her on her own, and any money she could fully spend and being like, this is fully my transaction, you know? And so that's what she like pushed on me really young, and like probably even more so than my brothers, to like, make sure you are creating your own life, and then you'll find someone who created their own life, and you guys can like live in harmony.
Create a life together.
Exactly. So I feel like her generation's doing a good job at teaching us, and I think we'll do even better at like teaching our future children, like just those like more independent thinking mindsets.
Yeah, it's just like having to unlearn behavior that's been passed down from generation to generation.
Women couldn't work like not that long ago.
Yeah, like the conversation that I had with my grandma that really opened my eyes to how much opportunity that I have and I have created for myself was years ago. Like my grandma knows like what I do. She knows how I make a living and she's super proud of me, but she told me, she's like, I just want you to realize, she calls me Juji. Aww. She says, Juji, I want you to realize that it wasn't even an option for me to do any of the things that you do. My parents just expected me to do X, Y, and Z and to be a wife and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then seeing how that is passed down from generation to generation, the next generation was my mom, and my mom was, a stay-at-home mom for a very long time, but through half of her life, after that, she realized like I loved doing that and she was incredible at it, but I want to be my own lady boss.
Exactly.
And she went and she has her own little salon thing and she loves doing that so much. And then there's me who started her own business and like never relied on a man.
Isn't it funny? We both came from moms with like a similar path for work, and we took a similar path for work.
Exactly. It's like, it's just crazy how it went from like my grandma, where that was just not an option whatsoever for her, and especially all the people around her and her parents, that was just what was expected of her. Yeah. Then it's passed down to my mom, and my mom did half and half, where she was a mom and she, that was what she was doing and she loved it and was great at it. And then the other half of her life, she was spent doing what she wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then there's me, where it's just, I've always done what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? And it's just really cool. And another thing that was awesome was I got Reiki done by one of my friends, Melissa, who's also my massage therapist. Uh-huh. And she says, all your ancestors are so proud of you because you've paved this path and you've gone completely against the grain.
That would make me cry if someone said that to me.
I was like, that's dope. She's like, they're all so proud of you. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going because you're breaking all of the barriers. And that's the thing is like, you're right. I feel like this new generation that comes out of the people that are around our age, it's going to be completely different. Like we're starting to chip away at that narrative to where hopefully it'll be gone in years down the road.
I'm thankful like I was raised by my mom, who is like a very masculine energy, like independent woman, even though for like a lot of my childhood she wasn't. I've watched her like really tap into that now. So I'm lucky that a lot of these things in this movie like weren't shocks for me, because they're like things I've known. And like I said, we try to preach to like the people that listen to this podcast or like that follow us on social media. Like we try to preach this narrative of like, you don't have to be perfect. And like just all of the things that essentially that one speech near the end touched on. But I could imagine like being raised by like a very different upbringing, that being a shock and being like, I don't know, like something I've never heard before. And that almost like scares me that like a lot of people, I don't know, like the whole aspect of like, I don't know how to explain it. Like we should have money, but not ask for money. We should be humble. Like that whole speech. Yeah. Like I think a lot of women don't ever have that perspective. And that was like a really turning point of the movie. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. I don't know how to explain it.
Say it again.
That speech that she gave, that whole speech.
About you can't be this, but you can be that. You can't be this, you can be that.
Are all things we're very self-aware of and recognize. Yes. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't realize those double standards. They don't know that they have them, or say you're a man, you don't realize you're putting that on women and not realizing it. Like, I'm just glad I'm in a place and surrounded by people where those things are talked about and like normalized. Because for a lot of people, that's taboo. They don't talk about money. They don't talk about losing weight. Like even my grandma would never talk about like dieting. Yeah. Like that's very taboo to that generation.
I think that this movie, when it starts, you think that it was created for women our age now, but as it goes, and once you find out that Gloria was actually the one, which is the mom of the girl, when Gloria was the one that actually brought the Barbies out and was the one that doing it, it was actually created for our moms. That's who the movie was actually created for. I don't know. I'm just making a guess. But
I could see that though.
I just realized that right now, because in that point, you think for the first half of the movie, you think that this movie is about empowering young women and blah, blah, blah.
You think it's almost for kids. It's about Barbie.
Yeah, you think it's for kids. But really, it's about breaking that stereotype that was put on our mothers and our mothers before them.
See, that's what I was trying to say.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, like I want to go and see it with my mom, because the speech that you hear from Gloria, who's around like all of our mom's ages, that made me cry and hurt, because I know what kind of pressure and what kind of expectation and what kind of damage was done to all the women of that age group, where they were put in a box, where they were told they couldn't talk, where they were told this is the certain jobs that you can have, you can't have. You were born and put on this earth to serve a man, and that's all you were able to do. This was for the older women. Yeah. Because we know this. Yeah. We already have.
That's what I'm saying. I'm thankful I'm in a time where that wasn't a shock to me. I knew all of that.
And we should all, like all of us who are around our age group and like even like 20s to like 30s, I'd say is a safe range where women already kind of know this. And we're lucky because we're blessed to have parents, moms, grandmothers that have went through the things that we don't have to go through now. Yeah. My grandma went through it for me. My mom went through it for me so that I can be who I am right now. Yeah. And that should never be forgotten, because they've gone through the hard stuff so that we can come out the other side and do what we're doing right now. Yeah. So they've put in this work so that we can be the new women of the future.
Thank you, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
And Grandma.
And grandmas. And so, all the above. This movie was, I feel like, really made for that woman that's hurting. That's why there was such a switch where you realize, and Barbie screams, "You were the one with the Barbie," because she's the one who actually needed to hear it.
I knew it too.
The younger girl knew all of this stuff already, because we are so much more educated on the dynamics of how basically, women are treated. Yeah. We're more educated now because of social media and stuff.
We had to see how our parents were treated too. Like, we pick those things up when we're little, even if we don't recognize it.
Yeah, exactly. The patriarchy was so it's harsher the further that you go back, but the further that you go forward is more chipping away. And so that huge shock of like the little girl's like, I already knew all this. I already knew Barbie didn't stand for blah, blah, blah. Like, we already knew that. The mom was the one who was built on the prince mentality and, validation through men and all of these things, because that's what was taught to her. Yeah. It's that just learned hard to behavior.
Break too. Exactly. Yeah. And another thing I want to touch on a little is like really kind of the true ending, partially, when she's talking with who is the inventor of Barbie. Yeah. And she says, I think it's a viral TikTok sound too. So even if you haven't watched the movie, you've probably heard this, but she says, close your eyes and feel, because she's showing her kind of the good and bad of being like a human, especially like a woman. And right now it's a trend on TikTok to put that sound over like girlhood and like show photos of you when you're little. And do you think it was really the actresses' like home videos? Because that's what it looked like.
The actresses?
Mm-hmm. Like all the women actually in the film. Do you think it was them when they were little?
It
kind of looked like it.
I hope they did that. I thought it was random women.
Okay, it might have been. I was like, it would be cool if they threw in like a Margot Robbie when she was like in 5th grade, you know? But anyway, she sees like a flash of like women of all ages, like experiencing joy, experiencing love, experiencing like some pain, but
sorrow,
yeah. And that part I think makes most people cry, especially Billie Eilish's song.
Well, because it's like, it's just the simplest things that are shown. There's nothing like super extravagant that is shown in those videos. It's just humans humaning, which is
beautiful.
Beautiful, because we always forget, we get caught up in like the achieving, the work, the relationships, like all of this other crap. Yeah.
That's
we forget like humaning is just everything that we're doing.
Seeing a little girl like sitting in a park like laughing is just like, it brings all of us back to being that little girl in the park laughing.
Well then, if you're listening to the lyrics of what Billie Eilish is saying, she's like,
God, that song makes me cry.
She's saying like, where did it end?
all the enjoyment
because when we were little, like it was just so simple. So it's like, where did it end? Like, where did it get so confusing? Where did we get caught up in how we should look and being perfect and what we can and cannot say? Like, where did it all go to shit?
Yeah, basically.
Like
I said before, if we were like raised in a world where we had no like influence from anyone outside of our own thoughts as far as like who we are and should be, I think society as a whole would be completely different. But we have constant like other people's thoughts and opinions, and as you get older, those corrupt us, to be honest.
Big facts. Okay, one of the other things too that I noticed is that it's not our responsibility as women to fix anyone. Because look, women
I have that trait bad.
And it's so true, but it comes from a space of like our feminine energy. We want to help. We want to be of service. We want to make other people happy, especially like our mother and our grandmother's generation. It's so prevalent for them to do that because they felt like maybe at some point their only purpose was to be put on this earth to serve a man or a family and to make them happy. And sometimes at the expense of their own happiness. And Barbie says to Ken a number of times that she doesn't want him and she doesn't like want to be with him. And it's not Barbie's job to fix his toxic masculinity and get him to see who he is without her. It is not your job, ladies, to fix a man and to try to make him better.
Take it from me.
That is his job.
I've done that one too many times.
Even though it might feel good to try and get somebody to like be better or to help them realize something, to make them happier, it's not your job to fix them.
You can't fix them.
No, because if they want to be fixed, if they want to change, they will change. First of all, we don't need to fix anybody. Yeah. But if they want to change, they will change. But it's not your responsibility to do so. And you're actually doing them and yourself a disservice. You're not helping them. You think you are, but it's actually selfish.
Even sticking around, like you're hurting yourself at the expense of this person taking their sweet time to change whatever it is they say they want to change. Yeah. Like that's putting your worth on the sidelines to help them.
And you're stifling their growth too, because it's all just a facade. It's all just fake.
Yeah.
We've all had that one boyfriend to where we're like, he'll get better if I just blah, blah, blah. You harm yourself. You actually harm them. You push them further away from getting better and realizing that they don't want to live their life that way. So it's actually a selfish deed.
Yeah.
Even though it seems selfless.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're doing it because it makes you feel good. So yeah,
that's my biggest toxic trait.
You don't need to fix anybody.
I think I finally got over that. My mom would always say to me, like, Kendall, stop looking for broken men. Like, stop looking for like these almost like work cases that you want to take them in and make them better, fix them or solve their problems. Like, just be happy with someone. And I listened, and now I'm very happy.
And I listened.
Thanks, Mom. I think thanks, Mom, is the moral of this whole podcast.
I think the Barbie movie was a whole thanks, Mom.
Yeah, there's a lot of takeaways. I like, for real, if you haven't seen it, I would go see it. And I think everyone can probably take different things away from even the same message, because we're all obviously independent in our own people. But it was way better than I expected, like delivered in a perfect way. It wasn't like shoving like, what is that word? Why can't I think of the word?
It wasn't shoving masculine or feminine over one another. It was very a balance between the two, and like, how can we work together?
It really just talked about real life.
Yeah, it was not how I thought it was going to be, like,
not
whatsoever. At all. Like, I went in thinking it was going to be a certain thing, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
it's different. It was really funny though too, so that's a plus.
I saw a lot of reviews being, or like people I knew who saw it being like, they said the same thing about, what's it called, like Woman in Prey or something that Margot Robbie was also in, where they were like, they're pushing like woman empowerment almost too much that it's cheesy. But in this one, I felt like by masking it with like humor, they did it perfectly. I felt like it was like like obviously they're over exaggerating everything. It's Barbie.
Yeah.
But like that's what made it digestible, because it felt like this like amusing thing to watch.
Well, it's funny. It's fun to like laugh at yourself. Like it was fun to, because I see myself in Barbie and I see myself in Ken, because I can be very masculine, but I'm very feminine on the way that I put my like appearance. So I could totally relate to Barbie and all the like needing to look perfect and having things like be great. I have to wake up and like make sure that my hair looks great and everything has to go according to plan. But also I can be very bro-y in the Ken sense, where I'm just I want to find everybody and I want a Mojo Dojo Casa House. Like I can see myself in both, and I think that was what was great about the movie, because if you're a man, you can see it and learn from it. If you're a woman, you can see and learn from it. It doesn't matter.
I think like I was trying to picture like a really toxic masculinity man watching it. And I feel like even them, like if they're open to the idea at all, watching Ken go from toxic man to like finding himself almost and being like finding harmony. Exactly. Like that could also hit home for someone maybe in that mindset that is like willing to get out of that mindset.
Exactly. Because I think one of the moments where I realized, I was like, oh, this is a movie for everybody. This is not just a woman empowerment movie. It was when Ken says, I'm tired of being the leader. And so does Will Ferrell. He's like, sometimes I just want to like tickle people. You know what I mean? And it made me realize that not only is there so much pressure on women to be perfect and to achieve, but not to achieve, to be heard, but not heard too much. There's a lot of pressure on men to be men and to be masculine and to have a Mojo Dojo Casa House, that men get broken down to the point where they end up turning toxic because of the standards that were put on them by their fathers. Just like the standard that was put on women by our mothers and our grandmothers to be a homemaker, to do X, Y, and Z, the men were put into situations of, you have to be a leader. You can't cry. Boys don't cry. Boys will be boys. We're all going through a similar thing. It's just one's almost masculine and one's feminine. So that relieved the pressure of Ken to be a leader and to be in charge and to always have man, and he can cry and it's okay. Yeah. And sometimes Will Ferrell just wanted to tickle people in a meeting instead of being so serious
always the best.
And coming up with like ideas. And I see that a lot too. I can see Zach going through that sometimes too, but Zach's a very in touch with his feminine energy man, but he's also can get sucked into the whole masculine energy thing just as well as any other guy can, where he has pressure to like work tons of hours, pressure to provide, pressure to like get a house for me, pressure to like do all these things that I'm like, where did those come from?
They're not coming from you.
They're coming from just generational curses, basically.
Yeah. So, I think finding a balance on both sides, both genders, like anything, I feel like finding a balance between that masculine and feminine is like the answer.
When can you tap into each one? Because there's definitely going to be moments where you need to tap into either or. So like when you're with a friend who's going through a rough time, you don't want to tap into your masculine energy and be like, get over it. You want to be able to tap into the empathy and be able to be there for your friend. Or when you have a deadline due, you don't want to be like so in your feminine to where you're like, it'll get done. You need to tap into a little bit of that masculine energy so that you can be disciplined and you can meet that deadline. There's beauty between the both. And I think that's why I love that the movie showed the stereotypes of both the male and female, which was great.
Emotional maturity.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Gotta love Barbie for telling us about it.
Well, let us know what you guys thought about the movie. Comment down below if you're on YouTube. DM us. And as always, we love you all so much. And you're more powerful than you think.
Bye.
Bye.